The forest moon of Taraxis IV was known for its quiet mornings, its silver mist, and its deep green valleys that stretched far beyond the eye. Yet no morning on Taraxis IV was ever truly peaceful. Not for the explorers, scientists, and rangers who entered its unknown zones. The moon held secrets, some beautiful, some dangerous, and some that had never been fully understood. It was the perfect place for a joint exploration mission, and one of the few locations where the new alliance between humans and alien species could be tested. Valara, a ranger from the Valeri species, stepped off the landing platform and breathed in the thick, humid air. Her skin, a pale shade of violet, shimmered slightly in the weak sunlight. She placed a hand on her hip, adjusting the scanner strapped to her belt. She had traveled across 5 star systems, braved storms on lava planets, and rescued explorers from freezing wastelands. She trusted her skills and her instincts. But today, she did not trust the decision the mission commander had made. Her partner for this expedition was a human. Not only that, but a human soldier with no arm, only a simple explorer suit, a small backpack, and a calm expression that seemed almost too relaxed for this dangerous moon. Lieutenant Eric Hale approached her with an easy smile. His boots made soft thuds against the platform as he walked, and the mist curled around his legs like small ghosts. "Ranger Valara?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, you must be Lieutenant Hale." "Arik is fine," he said kindly. Valara studied him carefully. Humans were new allies to the Valeri, and she had only met 3 before him. They seemed friendly, talkative, and easygoing traits she found strange in a galaxy full of tense, formal species. But what bothered her was not their behavior. It was the rumors she had heard. Humans were weak, not weak in the mind, not weak in spirit. But physically, many species thought humans were fragile, unable to match the strength of other allies. They lacked claws, armor plating, bone spikes, or energy glands like other species. Even their skin seemed thin, and now she was expected to explore Taraxis IV with one. "Are you prepared for the expedition?" Valara asked, keeping her tone polite but distant. "Absolutely," Eric replied. "I've read the reports. Looks like a fun place." "Fun?" Valara blinked. "Does he not know this moon has crushed entire research units with its wildlife?" She cleared her throat. "This is a level for danger zone. Nothing here is fun." Arik only smiled in response, but he did not argue. Instead, he took a slow breath, observing the tall trees that shook faintly in the morning wind. A group of scientists approached. Some were Valeri, some were Trascan, and some were humans. They carried recorders, scanners, and folded sensor nets. Their voices blended into a low chorus of excitement and worry. The mission commander, a Trascan with bright golden eyes, tapped his cane against the ground to get everyone's attention. "Welcome to Expedition 7, he announced. "Our goal today is to study new energy patterns detected in the Eastern Valley. Scans suggest movement from a large creature, possibly the Gravern species." A quiet murmur ran through the group. Even Valara felt a chill. The Gravern was not a creature to be taken lightly. Massive, thick-skinned, and dense with muscle, it was one of the few creatures known to ignore tranquilizers. Its footsteps alone could bend metal sheets. Worst of all, its territory was unpredictable. The commander continued, "We will move in small teams. Ranger Valara and Lieutenant Arik will scout ahead." Valara's stomach tightened. This was exactly what she feared. Scouting meant danger, especially with a creature like that nearby. But Arik simply nodded. Unfazed. "Let's make sure everyone returns safe," he said. His calm voice surprised her. She expected nervousness, or maybe hesitation. Instead, he acted as if this was a simple routine walk. The commander dismissed them, and the teams spread out into the forest. Valara and Arik were the first to enter the thick brush. The forest swallowed them quickly. Tall trees with dark bark rose above them like giants. Bright vines curled around their trunks, glowing faintly with soft blue light. Strange bird-like creatures flew overhead, their calls low and echoing, almost musical. Arik looked around with curiosity. Beautiful place. Velara walked ahead, her scanner in her palm. It is dangerous. Stay close, he followed without complaint. For a while, they moved in silence. Only the sound of rustling leaves and the occasional distant roar broke the quiet. Velara tried to focus on the signals coming from her scanner, but her attention kept drifting to the human walking beside her. Unlike most soldiers she had met, he did not look tense or stiff. He walked steadily, relaxed, as if he trusted every step he took, and his eyes blue and sharp seemed to notice everything around them. Finally, Velar asked, "Have you been on dangerous missions before?" "Many times," Arik replied. "And you? Do not fear this place?" Arik tilted his head. "Fear keeps people careful. Careful is good. But too much fear makes bad decisions. I try to stay balanced." She frowned slightly. His answer was simple, yet strangely wise. Still, the doubts in her heart did not fade. She had read the statistics. Humans had average strength levels far below Valeri Rangers. They had no natural defense features, and she did not want to be the one responsible for losing a partner. Again, the ground trembled under her feet. Velara stopped. Arik halted instantly beside her. "Did you feel that?" she whispered. "Yes," he answered softly. She checked her scanner. A faint ripple of energy moved across the screen, then vanished. The tremor came again, this time stronger. Branches shook. Blue glowing flowers dropped their petals. A flock of birds shot into the sky in a sudden wave of panic. Arik looked toward the east, his jaw tightening. "Something big is moving." "A Gravern," Velara murmured. "Maybe." They both listened. A distant, low rumbling echoed through the forest. Slow, heavy, rhythmic, step, step, step. Velara's pulse quickened. She raised her weapon. "Stay behind me," she said quickly. "If it is a Gravern, we must retreat carefully." Arik did not move behind her. "Velara," he said calmly, "you're a ranger. Let me assist you." "You cannot face a creature like that," she insisted sharply. "Your species lacks the strength too." She stopped, realizing how harsh she sounded. Yet Arik didn't react with anger or insult. He simply looked at her with understanding. "It's fine," he said. "You do what you think is right. I'll cover you." His voice held no pride, no challenge, only trust. Before she could answer, the tremor rose to its strongest. The trees ahead split open as a massive shadow moved between them. Branches cracked under its weight. The forest floor shook violently. Then, the shadow vanished again like something huge passing through the brush, just out of view. Velara's breath steadied. "We need to alert the others." "Now," Arik nodded. They moved deeper into the forest, following the faint tracks that had appeared on the soft soil. Long, wide marks pressed into the earth, deeper than any ordinary animal could make. But something else caught Velara's attention. Beside the massive tracks were smaller, lighter ones, fresh ones. Explorer boots. "Someone is ahead," she whispered. Arik crouched down, examining the prints. "Looks like a scientist group. Maybe 2 or 3 people." Velara checked her scanner. The signals were weak and scrambled. "We need to hurry." They pushed forward, guided by the tracks and distant noises. The forest felt tighter, heavier, as if holding its breath. Then she heard it, a faint cry. "Help." Velara sprinted toward the sound. Arik ran next to her, fast and steady. They reached a steep embankment. A young Valeri scientist lay below, pinned under a heavy fallen branch tangled with vines. The creature's roar echoed again, much closer this time. Arik didn't hesitate. "Go check the area," he said. "I'll get her out." Velara opened her mouth to protest, but before she could speak, Arik had already climbed down toward the trapped scientists. She watched him and felt something she had not expected: confusion. Humans were not supposed to be strong enough to lift something like that. The branch was wide, thick, and weighed more than most Valeri could handle alone. As she scanned the surrounding forest for threats, she heard Arik grunt softly, gripping the branch with both hands. He set his feet. His body set, and slowly, very slowly, the massive branch lifted an inch. Valara's eyes widened. Impossible. Arik took a deep breath. Muscles straining, and lifted again. Higher. The branch rose enough for the scientist to pull free. The distant roar thundered again. But at that moment, Valara thought only one thing. Humans are not as weak as I believed. The forest around them felt heavier after the rescue. The air seemed thicker, as if the trees themselves knew something dangerous was nearby. Valara helped the shaken scientist up the embankment, while Arik climbed behind them, brushing dirt from his gloves. The young scientist, breathless and pale, bowed her head in thanks. I am grateful. I thought I would be stuck there until the beast found me. Arik gave her a reassuring smile. You're safe now. Stay close to your group when you move. Valara observed him quietly. His breathing was steady. He didn't look exhausted after lifting the heavy branch. In fact, he didn't even seem winded. Her earlier doubts still echoed in her mind. But her eyes had seen something undeniable. Maybe humans are stronger than we thought. But how strong? The scientist hurried back toward her team, and Valara and Arik continued forward into the thickening jungle. The ground shook again, just a soft tremor this time, but enough to make birds leap from their branches. Arik looked ahead with calm focus. That's the third tremor in the last 10 minutes. Yes, Valara said quietly. It means the creature is close. She scanned the forest with her device. Strange energy ripples floated across the screen, flickering in and out like waves of static. It was unusual. Even graver beasts did not normally cause this exact energy pattern. What do you think it means? Arik asked. Valara studied the readings. It could be the creature's natural energy field, or something in the valley is disturbing the signals. Something else? Arik raised an eyebrow. As if one giant creature isn't enough, she allowed herself a small smile. Welcome to Terexus, for Lieutenant. As they walked, the trees grew taller, the shadows thicker, and the sounds louder. The hum of insects filled the air, and glowing flowers swayed softly, lighting the forest with blue and purple sparkles. Arik paused now and then to observe the plants. Fascinated by details, Valara had long stopped noticing. You really like nature, she said at one point. Surprised to hear herself speak so casually. It's peaceful, Arik replied. Even when it's dangerous? Peaceful? Valara almost laughed. This moon is known for dangerous creatures. It is not peaceful, Arik chuckled. Danger doesn't erase beauty. Sometimes both exist together. She looked at him more carefully. Humans were known for their adaptability, but she had not expected this kind of perspective. Something about him felt steady, grounded, different. Before she could think further, the forest shook violently beneath their feet. This time, there was no doubt. A massive roar thundered through the trees, shaking leaves loose from branches, scattering petals into the air. It was not a normal animal sound. This roar carried weight, depth, and a vibration that crawled into the bones. The Graver and Valara froze. The sound was close to close. Arik's hand moved slowly to the handle of his tool weapon, but he did not draw it fully. Instead, he looked around with sharp awareness. His eyes scanning the shadows and movements of the trees, Valara lifted her scanner again. The energy patterns jumped wildly across the screen, forming large spikes. It's moving, she whispered. Fast. Arik lowered his voice. Direction? East? No, north. It keeps changing. She frowned. It's almost like it's circling us. Another roar blasted through the forest, closer this time. Valara felt her heart pound. Arik stepped slightly forward, placing himself between her and the direction of the sound. He didn't say anything, but the gesture spoke enough. We need to get to higher ground, she said. If we can see the valley, we might understand what is happening. Arik nodded. Lead the way. They moved swiftly through the tall brush, climbing over thick roots and weaving around dense tangles of vines. The forest floor became uneven, sloping upward. As they climbed, Arik stayed close, but quietly gave Valara space to focus. She appreciated that when they reached a high ridge. Valara finally saw the valley spread out before them. She stopped. Stunned, the valley floor below was torn apart. Trees smashed, rocks split, soil ripped open. Large circular patterns marked the ground, almost like giant footprints but far deeper. As if something extremely heavy had pressed into the earth. Arik stood beside her, arms crossed lightly. That's not normal. No, she agreed. Definitely not. She zoomed her scanner. The energy reading spiked again, rising sharply. Then she saw movement, the grave, from a deep cluster of broken trees, and stepped into the open valley. It was huge, easily 5 times the size of a normal human, its body covered in thick, natural plates that looked like stone armor fused with muscle. Each step shook the ground. It let out a deep growl that carried across the entire valley. Arik breathed out slowly. That's bigger than the reports, Valara whispered. Stronger too, but something else was wrong. The Gravern was not alone. A strange blue glow pulsed around its body, flickering like energy waves. She had never seen that before. No report mentioned this kind of phenomenon. What is that glow? Arik asked. I don't know, she said honestly. It might be affecting its behavior. The creature suddenly lifted its head and roared again, louder than before. The sound tore through the trees, sending smaller animals fleeing. Arik leaned slightly forward, watching its movements. Something is agitating it, Valara nodded. We need to find the source. A distant shout echoed from the far side of the valley. Both Valara and Arik turned. A small group of scientists, 3 of them, were running along the valley edge, waving their arms and shouting for help. Behind them, the ground cracked open as the Gravern charged. Move! Valara shouted as she ran. Arik sprinted beside her, fast and controlled, his boots pounding against the forest floor. They slid down the ridge, branches whipping past them. The scientists stumbled and scrambled to climb a rocky slope. But the Gravern was closing in quickly. Valara raised her weapon and fired a signal flare into the air. The bright ball of light streaked upward, exploding into a burst of color, warning all nearby teams. The Gravern turned its head toward the flash, then it roared and charged even faster. Scatter! Valara yelled. The scientists split in 3 different directions, trying to escape. The creature smashed through a boulder like it was dust. The ground shook with each step. Arik veered toward one scientist who had fallen. Without slowing, he grabbed the scientist's arm and lifted him back to his feet. This way. Arik called. Valara guided the others up a narrow path between trees. But before she could follow Arik, the Gravern swung its massive head, slamming it into the ground and sending debris flying. A heavy shockwave hit the area, knocking Valara off balance. Arik shielded the scientist with his arm and braced himself against the force. The creature roared again and turned. Arik and the scientist. Valara felt panic rise. Arik, move. Arik looked back briefly, eyes sharp, then grabbed the scientist's collar and pulled him toward a cluster of thick roots. The Gravern charged. Its weight crushed the ground. Shaking the forest, the creature's giant claws tore through the soil. It lowered its head, aiming to ram straight into them. At the last second, Arik pushed the scientist behind a root wall and dove to the side. Rolling across the dirt, the Graveworn's head slammed into the roots, cracking them but not breaking through. It bellowed angrily and stomped furiously, trying to turn. Valara aimed her weapon and fired a bright pulse shot into the air. The creature swung its head toward the sound. She waved her arms, shouting loudly to draw its focus away from Arik. Over here. The Gravern stomped toward her, rage shaking each step. Arik regained his stance and ran to her side. We need to redirect it away from the scientists, agreed, she said, breathing fast. But how? Arik glanced around. Use the terrain. Lead it toward the stone ridge. That might work. They sprinted together, shouting and making noise to get the Gravern to follow them. The creature roared again and charged. Smashing through bushes and trees as they reached the ridge, Valara's heart pounded. The creature was moments behind them, its footsteps thunderous, its breath heavy and hot. Arik looked back at the Gravern, then at Valara. We jump on 3, he said calmly. She nodded, trusting him. 3, 2, 1. They leaped off the narrow ledge onto a lower platform of rock. The Gravern, driven by momentum, tried to stop, but its weight was too much. It slid. Its claws scraped against the stone, tearing grooves into the rock. Its body slammed into the ridge's edge, cracking the stone wall. The creature roared in frustration, unable to turn in the narrow space. Valara exhaled deeply. It worked. For now, Arik nodded. We bought time. But both of them knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The narrow stone ridge shook from the Graveorn's frustrated roars. Dust and broken pieces of rock fell from the cliff as the creature scraped its plated claws against the stone, trying to climb up again. But the path was steep, and its heavy body made it slip every time. It seemed trapped for the moment, but no one believed the moment would last long. Valara stood beside Arik, her breaths uneven as she watched the massive beast thrash below them. She felt the tremors through her boots, and her scanner flickered wildly with unstable readings. The Graveron's strength was not the only thing alarming her. The strange blue energy that pulsed around its body was growing brighter. What is happening to it? She whispered. Arik shook his head slowly. Looks like something is amplifying its energy. A natural force? Valara asked. Maybe, Arik replied. Or something we haven't discovered yet. The possibility worried both of them. Taraxis 4 had a reputation for surprises, most of them dangerous. The Gravern roared again, louder this time. The sound echoed across the valley like thunder rolling between mountains. Several birds burst from the nearby trees, flying away in panic. Valara checked her scanner again. The energy readings spiked sharply. It's getting stronger, she said. Then we should move fast, Arik replied. They began climbing the rocky slope on the opposite side of the ridge, trying to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the creature. The ground was uneven, with loose stones that shifted under their weight. But Arik moved with careful balance. Valara followed close behind. When they reached a higher ledge, they stopped to catch their breath. The forest stretched out beneath them like a green sea. But the peace in the view meant nothing, not with a powerful, enraged creature below. We need to gather the teams, Valara said. Everyone must regroup. No one should be out here alone while that thing is moving. Arik nodded. Agreed. Let's head toward the central beacon point. But before they could move, a faint cry reached Valera's ears. Help. Someone please help. She spun toward the sound. It came from the cluster of thick trees down the slope. The voice was weak, shaking with fear. Arik's eyes narrowed. Another scientist. They rushed down the slope, stepping carefully but quickly. The trees grew denser, blocking sunlight, and the ground softened into thick soil. The air felt heavier again when they reached a small clearing. Valara's heart tightened. A young Trascan scientist was trapped beneath a heavy fallen creature, large herbivore. Not dangerous, but extremely heavy. It must have been caught in the chaos when the Gravern charged earlier. The creature lay still. It had not survived. But its weight had pinned the scientist's legs to the ground, leaving him unable to move. Valara ran to his side. Are you hurt? The scientist's breathing was quick. I cannot feel my legs. The weight is too much. I tried calling for my team, but my radio broke. Don't worry, Arik said, kneeling beside the fallen creature. We're here now. Valara examined the situation. The creature was massive, easily several hundred kilograms. Even 5 Valeri Rangers would struggle to move it without equipment. Arik, she said firmly. We need to find a tool or a lever. We cannot lift this alone. But Arik didn't answer. He placed both hands under the creature's side and tested its weight. The muscles in his arms tightened as he pushed slightly. Valara's eyes widened. Arik, stop. You will injure yourself. He looked at her calmly. He doesn't have time. The Gravern is coming closer. Look. She turned sharply. Through the gaps in the trees, she saw shadows moving at the far edge of the forest. The creature was climbing out of the ridge it had found away. We don't have minutes, Arik said. We have seconds. But you cannot lift this alone, she insisted. Arik took a deep breath. his voice steady. "Let me try." "But—" The trapped scientist whimpered softly. "Please, hurry." Valara hesitated. Everything she knew, everything she had learned, told her that humans had limits. Strong spirit, strong mind, yes. But strength of body, nothing extraordinary. Nothing close to the power needed to lift this. Yet she had seen Arik lift the heavy branch earlier. Was that luck? Or something more? Arik steadied his feet in the soil, positioning himself carefully. He placed his palms under the creature's body, fingers digging into the thick hide. His shoulders tightened. His jaw set. Valara felt her heartbeat quicken. "Arik," she whispered. He didn't answer. He exhaled slowly once. Twice and then pushed. The creature didn't move at first. Arik's muscles strained. His arms trembled. The soil shifted beneath him. But he didn't stop. He adjusted his position, lowering his center of gravity. He pushed again. This time, the creature lifted a little, just a few centimeters. But enough for Valara to gasp in disbelief. How is he doing this? Arik tightened his grip, his face focused and determined. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He simply pushed harder, his breaths controlled and steady. The massive body lifted higher, inch by inch. "Move," Arik said through clenched teeth. "Pull him out!" Valara rushed to the trapped scientist, grabbing his arms. "Hold still, I am pulling you." With Arik lifting the heavy creature, Valara dragged the scientist free, pulling him across the clearing and away from danger. As soon as the scientist was clear, Arik released the weight. The large body fell back to the ground with a heavy thud, sending dust into the air. Arik staggered backward, catching himself on a tree trunk. His breathing was hard, but controlled. Valara stared at him, speechless. The young scientist looked at Arik with wide, grateful eyes. I do not know how to thank you." Arik smiled weakly. "Just stay with your team next time." Valara approached slowly. Her voice was soft, filled with a mix of amazement and confusion. "Arik, how did you do that?" He wiped his hands on his pants and looked at her with quiet honesty. "Humans aren't the strongest species. We know that. But sometimes, when someone needs help, we push harder. Harder than we think we can." "That was more than pushing harder," she said. "That was impossible." Arik shrugged lightly. "Maybe. But impossible things happen when people don't have a choice." Before Valara could respond, the ground shook again. This time it was stronger. The Graveworn's roar ripped through the trees with terrifying power. The leaves shook. Small branches snapped. Birds burst from the canopy. Arik stood up straight, all exhaustion disappearing from his face. "It's coming." Valara lifted her scanner. The readings were wild, sharp spikes, bright flashes. "It's getting closer fast," she said. "We need to hide." She grabbed the scientist's arm, helping him stand. Arik supported the other side. Together, they hurried deeper into the trees, moving toward a large hollow between ancient roots. It wasn't much, but it was enough to conceal them from sight. The Gravern crashed through the forest.
Moments later,
Its massive body rumbled with power, glowing with intense blue energy that pulsed like lightning. Its eyes scanned the forest, and its heavy breath made the leaves shake. Valara's hands trembled slightly. Arik stood beside her, calm but alert, ready to move if needed. The Gravern sniffed the air, then roared and stomped away, moving south toward other teams. Arik let out a slow breath. "We need to warn everyone." Clara nodded. "And find the source of that strange energy." Arik looked at her. "And stop it before the creature becomes unstoppable." She met his gaze. For the first time, her doubts were gone. Humans were not weak. Not even close. The night after the attack felt longer than any night Lyra had ever lived through. The forests around them were quiet, too quiet, as if every creature had decided to hide deep underground. The shadows between the trees looked thicker, and even the moonlight seemed weaker. But inside the small shelter Jace had built, there was a soft warmth. A simple lamp, powered by a portable human cell, glowed with a calm light. Lyra sat near the lamp, her arms wrapped around her knees. While Jace finished setting a new lock on the door, she kept watching him, her thoughts heavy and confused. Earlier that day, she had seen something she never expected, a human lifting a giant forest beasta. A creature that even trained alien hunters avoided. She had watched him hold it, push it, and finally throw it aside. She still didn't understand how. Jace noticed her watching and gave a small smile. "You okay?" he asked gently. Lyra nodded, but her eyes told a different story. She wasn't scared of him. That part had passed. What she felt now was something new, curiosity mixed with uncertainty. She wanted answers, but she didn't know how to ask without sounding foolish. Jace sat down across from her. "If something's bothering you," he said, "you can ask me. I won't mind." His voice was calm, steady. It reminded her of the moment he had stood between her and the beast, completely unafraid. The memory made her chest feel warm. Finally, she asked, "How did you do it? That creature was huge. Even my people fear it. But you." She hesitated. "You fought it like it was nothing." Jace scratched the back of his head. "It wasn't nothing. It was pretty heavy. You lifted it," she insisted. "No human should be able to do that." He sighed. "Lyra, humans are not all the same. Some train their whole lives. Some push their bodies beyond normal limits. And sometimes, when someone is in danger, people can do more than they think." She studied him quietly. "But you did not look afraid." "The fear comes later," he said with a small laugh. "When you're trying not to fall over afterward." Even she had to smile at that. But there was still a bigger question in her heart. "Why did you protect me?" She asked. Jaya blinked. "What do you mean?" "You could have escaped. The beast came from behind. You saw it before I did. You had time to run. Yet you stayed. Why?" Jace looked down at his hands. "Because you were in danger." "That is not enough reason," she said softly. "Not for someone you barely know." He lifted his gaze and met her eyes. "Maybe it is enough for me." Lyra felt her heart skip. His answer was simple, but something about it cut deep. Humans. She had heard they were emotional, unpredictable, sometimes reckless. But she never imagined one could be this selfless. Jace stood up and stretched. "Anyway, you don't have to worry tonight. There shouldn't be any more beasts nearby. I made sure the tracks are burned away." She watched him move around the shelter to check the barricades. His steps were steady, practiced. He wasn't just strong, he was trained, skilled, experienced. And yet he acted so casually about it. "Jace," she said suddenly, "were you a soldier?" He froze for a moment before answering. "A little. Not anymore. I left that life behind." "Why?" He gave a half smile. "Because I wanted something quieter, something simpler, something where I could help people without everything else." Lyra didn't know what everything else meant, but she sensed it was painful. She didn't push further. Instead, she changed the subject. "Tomorrow, will the beast return?" "No," he said firmly, "but something else might." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "The patrol drones. The ones searching for you." Lyra's breath caught. "They are still close?" "Very. And after the noise from the fight, they'll investigate." A nervous tension filled her chest again. She had been running from those drones for days. They didn't want to harm her. They wanted to take her back to the station she had escaped from, a place filled with cold lights, strict rules, and people who never accepted her curiosity about humans. "What should we do?" she asked. "We move before dawn," Jace said. "There's a cave system near the cliffs. Hard for drones to scan. Easy to hide in." She nodded slowly. "And after that?" "After that," he said with a small, confident grin, "I get you off this part of the planet and somewhere safe." She had no idea why, but hearing him say that made her feel stronger. A quiet moment before dawn, a soft breeze drifted in through the window. The sky outside was a dark blue, almost black, with the first hints of morning creeping in. Lyra couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the events of the day. The beast. Jace standing in front of her, his hands gripping the creature's horns, his voice telling her she was safe. She turned toward him. He was sitting near the entrance, holding a small metal device in his hand. A portable scanner. He wasn't sleeping either. "You should rest," she whispered. "So should you." She hesitated before walking over to sit beside him. The scanner's screen glowed faintly, showing a map of the forest. Several red dots flashed on the right side. "Is that the drones?" She whispered double quotes. "Yeah, they're searching in a wide circle. They'll reach our location by sunrise." Fear tightened inside her. "Will they capture us?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "I won't let them." She stared at him. "You keep saying that, and I mean it every time." Something in his tone made her chest feel warm again. She didn't understand why he risked so much for her, but she was grateful. More than she could put into words. After a long moment of silence, she asked Jace, "Do you regret helping me?" He looked surprised. "Why would I regret it?" "Because I brought danger to you." "You could have continued your quiet life," he smiled gently. "Lyra, sometimes a quiet life becomes too quiet. Helping you feels right." Her breath softened. Something in his words eased the weight in her heart. The morning escapes, the sky brightened. They gathered their supplies. Jace packed quickly, checking each tool, each battery, each bandage. Lyra watched him, trying to match his movements, but she felt clumsy. Still, he never scolded her. He just smiled and helped her adjust the straps on her pack. When they stepped outside, the forest looked fresh and misty. The early light touched the leaves with silver, but the peaceful scene couldn't hide the distant hum of machines. "They're close," Jay said quietly. "Stay behind me." She followed him through the trees, her steps fast and careful. The humming grew louder. A beam of white light swept across the forest floor behind them. "They found our old camp," Jace said. "We need to move faster." The cliff path wasn't far now, but the drones were gaining. Lyra could hear branches breaking behind them. Her heart pounded. "Jace," she whispered urgently. "They're coming from the right, too." "No." "Keep going." His voice was steady, but she could hear the strain in it. He was calculating, planning, searching for an escape route in his mind. They reached a narrow ridge overlooking a steep drop. The cave entrances were across the open space, too far to reach before the drones saw them. Lyra felt panic rise. "What do we do?" Jace looked at her with calm confidence. "We make them lose sight of us." "How?" He grabbed her hand, firm but gentle. "Trust me." Before she could ask anything else, he pulled her toward the edge of the ridge. Her eyes widened. "Jace, we can't jump." His grip tightened reassuringly. "We're not jumping. We're sliding." He stepped off the ridge, pulling her with him. The slope wasn't a cliff, it was a long, steep hill, covered in soft moss. They slid down fast, leaves and dirt flying around them. Lyra shouted in surprise, clinging to him with both arms. The drones reached the ridge just as they vanished beneath. The trees again. They reached the bottom safely, breathless and covered in leaves. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "You're crazy," Jace laughed. "Maybe a little, but it worked," she whispered. "Of course it worked," he said. "You trusted me." She didn't answer. She only looked at him a moment longer, feeling a new understanding forming inside her. Toward the caves, they reached the dark entrance of the cave system, just as more drone lights flashed through the forest behind them. Jace looked at her. "Ready?" She nodded together. They stepped inside the shadows unseen, unheard, and carrying a bond that neither of them fully understood yet. But one thing was certain. Lyra no longer doubted human strength, and she no longer doubted Jace. Not after everything he had risked. For her, the caves were colder than Lyra expected. The air smelled of damp stone and old minerals, and their footsteps echoed softly as they moved deeper inside. A faint blue glow came from the crystals scattered along the walls, giving the tunnels a dreamlike brightness. Jace walked in front, scanning the tunnels with careful eyes. Lyra followed closely, her fingers brushing the wall for balance. She felt tired from running, tired from fear, but she also felt something new. A feeling she didn't have before she met Jace. Safety, not because they were hidden inside. The cave, because he was with her. They reached a wider chamber and stopped to rest. The glowing crystals lit the space well enough for them to see each other clearly. Lyra sat down on a smooth rock watching Jace as he checked their supplies. After a moment, he noticed her staring. "What's on your mind?" "He asked everything," she said quietly. "The drones, my people." "You," he raised an eyebrow. "Me? Yes," she said softly. "You risked your life again and again. For someone you barely know." Jace set his pack down and sat across from her. "I had told you before, helping you feels right. I'm not the kind of person who leaves someone behind." She looked down at her hands. "I know, but there is more. I want to understand something." "Ask." She lifted her gaze. "Why are humans so strong?" He laughed lightly. "Not all humans are strong." "But you are," she insisted. "And I have seen stories. I have read reports. Humans survive almost anything. They keep fighting even when they should fall. They keep moving, even when everything is against them." "Why?" Jace thought before answering. "Maybe because humans had no choice. Our home world taught us to push, to adapt, to survive no matter what. We learned to protect each other because that was the only way to keep going." He looked at her, eyes steady. "Strength is not just about muscles, Lyra. Sometimes it's about heart, about not giving up." Her chest warmed. She had heard many explanations about humans, but none like this. None so simple, so honest. She whispered, "I did not believe in human strength before. Not truly. I thought many stories were exaggerated. And now," she met his gaze, "now I believe." A soft silence filled the chamber. The glowing crystals sparkled around them, like tiny stars listening quietly. The drones draw near. The peaceful moment didn't last long. Suddenly, the scanner in Jace's hand beeped loudly. He stood up quickly. Lyra's breath caught. "What is it?" "They found the ridge," he said, checking the screen. They scanned the slide marks. "They're heading toward the cave entrance." Lyra jumped to her feet. "Will they come inside?" "Yes," he said. "They can't see us yet, but they know we're nearby. What do we do?" Jace turned off the scanner and grabbed his gear. His voice was calm but firm. "We keep moving. The caves go deeper. There's an old mining exit on the far side of the mountain. If we reach it before the drones catch up, we'll escape into the open plains." Lyra swallowed hard. "And if they find us inside the tunnels?" Jace looked into her eyes. "Then I'll keep you safe, no matter what." Her chest tightened with emotion she couldn't name, but she didn't argue. She trusted him. They moved deeper into the cave. The tunnels narrowed, twisted, and dipped steeply. The crystals grew brighter as they went forward, turning the path into a glowing maze. Behind them, faint metallic echoes began to form. Lyra stiffened. "They're inside." "I know," Jace said quietly. "Stay close." She did, a dangerous drop after almost 20 minutes of walking. They reached a point where the tunnel floor sloped sharply downward into darkness. Jace used his light to scan the drop. "It's steep but safe," he said. "If we slide carefully, we'll reach a lower level." Lyra looked at the drop, nervous but trusting. "You go first." Jace slid down smoothly, landing on a soft patch of moss-covered stone. He looked up at her. "Your turn." She took a breath and slid down. Jace reached up and steadied her when she landed. She almost slipped into him, but he caught her easily. "Careful," he said with a small smile. Her cheeks warmed. "Thank you." But before they could move again, a loud metallic whir echoed above them. A drone that had reached the upper ledge and shone. A bright beam down the slope. Lyra froze. "It found us." Jace grabbed her hand. "Run." They sprinted through the tunnel as the drone fired a tracking beam that chased them like a spotlight. The sound of more drones echoed behind the first one. The chase had begun. Cornered. Underground, the tunnels branched into multiple paths. Without hesitation, Jace pulled Lyra into the left passage. The drone lights followed. The path grew narrower, the walls almost touching their shoulders. Lyra's breath came fast and shallow. "Jace," she whispered, "there's no way out." "Yes, there is," he said. "I saw it on the scanner earlier. There's a natural crack at the end of this tunnel. We just have to reach it." They ran until the tunnel ended in a narrow split through the stone. It was barely wide enough for a person to slide through sideways. Lyra looked at it in panic. "Jace, we cannot both fit quickly." He turned to her, grabbed her shoulders gently, and said, "You go first. But Lyra, trust me. I'll be right behind you." She hesitated, then nodded. She squeezed through the crack, the stone scraping lightly against her clothes. Halfway through, she heard a drone enter the tunnel behind them. Her heart raced. "Jace, I'm here," he said. "Keep going." She pushed herself out of the crack and fell into a small chamber on the other side. She turned just in time to see Jace slip through the gap seconds before a drone beam struck the rock. The drone fired again, hitting the edges of the split and causing stones to fall. Lyra reached forward. "Jace, hurry." He pushed through just as the crack collapsed behind him, sealing the tunnel with fallen rocks. They were safe. For the moment, Jace caught his breath. Well, that was close. Lyra didn't think. She moved forward and hugged him tightly. "You scared me?" she whispered. He froze for a second, surprised, then gave a gentle pat on her back. "I'm okay. We made it." She stepped back, embarrassed but grateful. She didn't apologize. Her fear had been real, and so was her relief. The final path, they moved forward again, careful and quiet. After several minutes, they reached a wide opening where the tunnel ended in a tall metal door, rusted and half buried in dust. "The mining exit," Jace said with a satisfied breath. "We're close." Tried the control panel. The lights flickered weakly. "It still has power," he said, surprised. "But only a little." Lyra watched anxiously. "Can it open?" "Yes, but slowly." He typed in the override. A deep, grinding sound filled the chamber as the door began to slide open. But then, metallic echo sounded behind them. Lyra turned pale. They broke through the cave wall. Jace clenched his jaw. "We need to buy a few seconds." He stepped between Lyra and the sound. "No." She whispered, "You can't fight drones alone." "I don't have to fight them. Just delay them." Looked at her with calm eyes. "Lyra, you get to the door. When it opens enough, run through it. I'll be right behind you." Her voice shook. "I can't leave without you." "You're not leaving me," he said softly. "You're just taking the first step." The drone's lights grew brighter. Approaching fast, Jay stepped forward. Lyra watched him. Her heart heavy and full. She understood. Now, human strength wasn't about lifting beasts or sliding down ridges or escaping drones. It was about this. The will to stand up for someone else. The courage to protect. The promise to not give up. And Jace carried that strength in every step. Freedom, the door opened wide enough. "Lyra, go." Jace shouted. She hesitated only for a heartbeat before running through the door. Once she reached the other side, she turned back Jace. He sprinted toward the door just as the drones turned the corner. They aimed their beams at him. Lyra reached toward the control panel on her side. "Come on, Jace." He leaped through the opening just as she slammed the door control. The metal door slid shut between them and the drones. A loud crash echoed as the drones hit the sealed barrier on the other side. Silence followed. Jace stood breathing hard, hands on his knees. Lyra moved to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You made it," she whispered. He looked up at her with a tired smile. "Told you I'd be right behind." She smiled back, soft, warm, and full of gratitude. Under the open sky, the mining exit opened to a wide, peaceful plain under a bright morning sky. Gentle wind brushed the tall grass. No drones, no beasts, no danger, just freedom. Lyra stepped into the sunlight, feeling the warmth on her skin. Jace stood beside her. "What happens now?" she asked. Jack looked at the distant horizon. "Now, we find somewhere safe. A quiet place. Somewhere you can live without fear, and you," she asked softly. He glanced at her with a faint smile. If you want me to, I'll stay with you. Her heart warmed. I would like that. They stood together, the long journey behind them. A new future waiting ahead. For the first time, Lyra truly believed in human strength, not because of stories, not because of legends, but because of one. Human who proved it to her. JC, the one who lifted the beast alone and the one who lifted her heart with his courage,